Relic 8. German for a whale. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails. Today we're going to talk about characters that would probably benefit from becoming Relic 8 sooner than later. I know that every account's got its own issues and its own priorities, but these should, I think, at the very least be incorporated into your planning, which is, of course, in my opinion, the most interesting part of this game, trying to plan and decide what the best things are. The list is the most current list of priorities, in my opinion. So before we get into that, if you want to talk about most current list of priorities, a huge shout out to my patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all of your support, guys. And if you want to support this channel for free, all you gotta do is hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, comment, folks. Mount the algorithm. Let's make Relic 8 on the algorithm the first thing you do today. You can do it. I've heard you can. I've heard tales of your prowess or something. Let's get to it, folks. Whoa, madness! We're in the game. This is crazy. So I've made other Relic 8 videos before, and the list is always going to shift a little bit, and frankly, I mean, Relic 8 everyone, right? Like, eventually that's the goal. We want to get everyone Relic 8, Relic 9, whatever. But here's the most current list of characters that I'm like, man, these are characters that I think are going to make the biggest impact based on the current situation in the game. And we're talking about characters that are maybe a little less obvious. Some of them are like, oh my gosh, yeah, obviously do that. Like, do Relic 8, do Relic 9, whatever on this. And one of them, however, which has been under debate lately, a little under fire, is Mace Windu. A lot of people hating on him lately, a lot of people loving on him. People want to know where I stand, and you can see I have him Relic 9. This is on my bigger account, and so you know, I can maybe afford. I spend a little bit on the game, and I think Relic 9, Relic 8, Mace Windu he just makes sense, guys. He is really good. If you're early game and you don't know who to Relic, like, maybe he's not like one of your first Relic 8s ever, but guys, he is so good. And I think some of the fire that he's been taking has been because when he's lower relics, he just doesn't do what he needs to do as well. He costs 3 Zetas. He is a fairly expensive character, but his impact in territory wars is really strong, even if it's a little bit on the periphery. The biggest thing, though, folks, is his ability to tank for Galactic Republic teams, which we continue to keep adding more and more of because they're so important to they're so central to the Star Wars story. But he's also just really good at not only tanking, but he adds utility beyond that. It's like, okay, later in this list we're going to talk about Royal Guard a little bit, and he's worth Relic 8. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the biggest thing about Mace that makes him better than a lot of other tanks is he adds offensive utility as well. So he's going to be ability blocking people, he's going to be stunning people, and I'm pointing at these things that are behind my face, but his basic ability blocks people, he stuns with his second ability, he passes the turn and calls an assist with his third ability, and then he also just chips away at their max health and protection. He has a ton of utility, guys. He counters, he regenerates his protection and other people's protection. He for better banners, he does a lot. The problem is he is very stat hungry, and he's got the old school stats, which means they're a little lower than the newer character stats. And I mean, things that we'll be looking at, I'll be clicking on this a lot. Because he's a tank, he's classified as a tank, he gets those really awesome tank boosts once you get to Relic 9. Relic 8, though, he's still getting a lot of stuff. And here's the thing. He's not your primary damage dealer, but he doesn't do 0 damage. He's not your primary like debuffer or utility guy, but he does really want to be able to stun. He wants to be able to apply ability block on basic. He wants to be able to do all that stuff, and so he's very stat hungry. So you're going to be modding him for some offense, for some health, lots of health actually, as much health as you can, other than his primary set mods. And then potency is also very important. He wants a lot of stuff, and so the more relic levels you can get, the less you have to worry about having perfect mods and a perfect situation. If you can just get, like, I wouldn't be too surprised if when they make Relic 10 a thing in this game, which they keep not doing, which surprises me, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he was one of the first Relic 10s a lot of people do. He is very strong, and he goes on a ton of Jedi teams, not only Galactic Republic teams, he goes on other good Jedi teams like Jedi Revan. I even use him with Jedi Master Luke sometimes. Obviously Jedi Master Kenobi. He goes with Qui-Gon. He goes with Kelleran Beq. And I'm sure, like, Padme, I've probably missed a few teams. He is one of the best characters in the game, guys. You should work on him and get relics on him. Maul is another one. So certain characters are going to make it on this list every time for a while, I think, because people ask me all the time. They're always like, dude, why do you have high relics on Maul? Like, what good is high relic? All he's doing is calling other people to assist so they can do a lot of damage. Or like, okay, he does okay damage, but like, what is he actually doing? Here's the thing, guys. He is disproportionately affected in a positive way by adding more relics. Now, this is something that a lot of people are going to, you guys have heard me forever talk about this, but he gets damage based on, you know how Grievous gets damage based off of his max health, and that's it, right? He ignores his offense numbers. Maul is the same, except he doesn't ignore his offense numbers. He gets damage from both health and from his offense numbers, and so as you increase his relics, you're going to increase his health and his damage, obviously, and those are both contributing to his total amount of damage that he does, because I think it's in his basic, so Anguish, it takes max health, it takes damage based off of his max health, and that applies to how much damage he's doing with his hits, and then obviously he also uses, maybe not obviously, he uses his offense, and so he's just, every time you put a relic level on him, he gets to double dip. And it's really nice. You have to pay some pretty close attention to his stats. And obviously his stats, his modding changes a little bit if you're going to only put him with Lord Vader, or if you're going to have him go off alone, which, there's 2 different builds, and what are you supposed to do? Eventually, CG will hopefully provide an answer for that. But as of right now, he is the captain of several very interesting teams, or at least a key component. So Lord Vader, he's always been really strong with Lord Vader. But beyond that, he's really good with dark side Mandalorians. He's also really good with light side Mandalorians. He's probably going to be fairly important in the new Rise of the Empire material that they're going to be giving us soon. I'm assuming soonish for, unlocking Mandalore. And I just can't see him not being a pretty key component or player moving forward. So more relics to him, more awesome, in my opinion. Now, Jedi Knight Cal, he is required at 7 for his mission in Baraka. He needs Relic 7, and so people ask why Relic 8 on him, and all I have to say is he is a vital component to a lot of the things that Jedi are doing right now. You're using him to be a lifter for Jedi Master Luke, or you're using him, to kill other galactic legends. You're using him to unlock Zepho for your guild and win GT2 for yourself and the rest of your guild. You're using him to do the Zepho combat mission, which I don't care about that one as much because it's just a combat mission. It's offset by deployment and all that stuff. But you're also using him on a Jedi Revan team to kill, I don't know, the new awesome Zori squad, or do a bunch of other really cool stuff with Jedi Revan to kill like Malgus or other Sith, variants or, you know, even Imperial Remnant stuff. He's central to what's going on in the meta right now. He's an important character, and Relic 7, sure, that's good. He needs to survive to do that, and he needs to survive for a while, and every once in a while, these really big targets are going to try to take a huge bite out of him, and one extra Relic level might really make a big difference. I have been in a lot of situations where he's in the deep red. It's like, oh my gosh, I think he might have like 20 hit points left out of his, you know, hundreds of thousands that he gets, and I'm sure that it's because of my amazing modding, you know. Pat myself on the back. That's obviously the only reason I dominate in this game all day, forever, but it's also a really nice thing to have more relics. And honestly, guys, relics are a great way for him, because he's another stat hungry guys. A lot of these characters are, I mean, he's very mechanics based. He loves his mechanics, and a lot of these characters do. But the thing you have to keep in mind is a lot of the characters that I'm suggesting really, really love extra stats, because they do a whole lot of stuff. And in his case, he loves a lot of stats. Darth Malgus, a character who is also set, like, now he's on offense more than defense lately, and it's nice to see it when people plays him on defense, because of how much he can accomplish on offense. He's doing a lot of cool stuff, and he's here's the biggest thing, guys. Here's the kicker. I mean, I have him at Relic 9. I actually just got him to 9 on my alt account as well. And, I mean, it's not just because his ship. His ship is important. It really is. But I don't know if you'll notice a difference between 8 and 9 on your ships. The biggest thing is his health pool needs to increase a lot. And, I mean, protection is nice and all that, but his health pool is very, very important for him, because the only damage he does that's worth noting at all is based off of his max health and how much damage he does. So 40% of his max health with this big hit, and it is a massive hit. So all of my modding is revolving around his health, except for his crit avoid arrow for reasons. But gosh, I could actually increase some of these, it looks like, but on speed, doesn't really matter. Lots of health, guys, tons of health, and that's basically his priority, because his huge hit is a catastrophe when you hit another player, another character, another actual player. It physically hurts me when I see someone's Malgus destroy one of my characters. It actually kind of does. He's probably, for me, he's probably the year's most tilting character out there. He just pisses me off the most, and I want to piss the most people off. So let's get do it, guys. Okay, gosh, we're taking a long time for each character. We got to speed this up. But okay, so 7th Sister, Relic 8. Honestly, all the Inquisition should. If you get them to 7 to unlock Reva, then you unlock Reva and take her to 8 or plus. You know, 'cause she's a tank. She benefits from a lot of stuff. Then you could get all of, like, your Inquisition already right there. Like, I know that it's a big step to get 5 characters all the way to Relic 8, but then you have the Rise of the Empire missions that you can do on that station in Phase 4 in Rise of the Empire, and you get your whole guild a bunch of DT3, which is something you kind of need. And the Inquisition squad, I've been saying it a lot lately, guys, beyond Galactic Legend squads, they're the best squad in the game, unless you count, like, weird Bane character or squads as a squad. Like, he's probably a little better than Inquisition, but in terms of utility, they are enormously important. 7th Sister, think of how often she's attacked. She attacks every time another of her friends attacks, and honestly, she'd be a great candidate for Relic 9. She also really wants to not die, because she's really important to what she does, to what Inquisition do. So yeah, get her Relic 8 if you can, and get the rest of your Inquisition there as well. Alright, let's move forward. Ben is more relevant than ever, folks. Not only does he have a really good Datacron set, which I realize is not as relevant lately, because I mean, for any of these videos, I try not to talk about Datacron specific stuff, but Resistance are really good right now. The other thing, though, is more and more people are starting to use Malgus with Starkiller. They're blending the teams, and it kind of kills me to do it. But on the other hand, they're my 2 favorite squads in the game, so I guess in some ways it's fun. It'd be fun if we Got to use both at the same time. Here's the thing though, folks. If you're using Starkiller with Malgus, that means you're not constantly stunning Ben solo. The strategy changes significantly, which means he's gonna get hits in. He's gonna start doing damage, and you applied all 3 of those Omicrons on him because you're a badass and you're a good person. You probably take your neighbor's trash out as well, and if you don't, you're not to blame. I wouldn't do that, frankly. That's not something I would do or advise. But you might. You're probably a good person like that. The thing is, he does a disastrous amount of damage when he's allowed to. And if Starkiller is the reason you've been holding out on it, I think Starkiller eventually he'll continue to counter the Rey squads. I think it's going to look different, and I think Ben, with more damage to his name, is going to be that disaster. He just does a ton of damage. He hits underneath. The other day, he just one-shot my cat. I was doing some stupid stuff. I made a mistake, and I paid for it. With Ben, he's relentless, man. He does a crazy amount of damage with his big hit. He does armor shred. He does all that stuff. Just mod him for tons of offense and watch him destroy people. And that jump from going from 7 to 8 on him is just really nice. It's a lot of damage. Dr. Aphra. So here's the thing, guys. In 3s, yeah, her Datacron set's gone. And it's too bad. We probably want her to be more survivable, though. If she wants her squad to be operating at a high level, then you need her to be survivable. And so she really wants to load up on as much potency as she can, which means she needs to have hit points and armor and all that stuff from her relic levels, and she gets it, and it's nice, and that's cool. She doesn't do damage specifically. I mean, she does, but that's not the reason you take her. She facilitates the damage, but she needs to survive in order to do that, in which case you probably want her to be relic. You don't have to do 8, but I did notice a pretty nice jump in her survivability once I went from 7 to 8. Of course, that was subjective. I won't promise you that yours will survive, but it'll survive, I promise. So Kelleran Beq, he's got the new Datacron. It'll go away eventually, but I don't think he will go away. He's got a really strong Omicron, which I've already applied on 2 of my accounts, and will probably be my first Territory War Omicron on my littlest account once I get him up and running. He is an unlock character for Bo-Katan Mandalore, who is not that important, but at least currently, she will be important for the new Rise of the Empire node coming up. But beyond that, he's really important in PvP for several different reasons, and you want him to be a lot of relics. In fact, I've considered getting him up just a little bit more to Relic 9 because he gets a little jump in protection, and he really loves that jump in protection. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is a lot of his damage is based on how much protection he has. Because he's not a tank, he is not getting protection for each relic level. He is just not, and I'm not trying to mislead you when I tell you that that's, you should be focusing on a lot of protection on his modding and everything, but you want him to be at a high relic level so he can survive and so that he can chop people's faces off as soon as possible. You want him to be formidable, and eventually we'll probably end up putting Relic 9 on him anyways for that extra protection, because that's fun. Starkiller is a character who's the most stat hungry ever, and I would love to get him to Relic 9 one day, because he does, there's 2 different builds that you can do for him. The health build, where he does more damage when his Star Destroyer comes down and hits people, because it's based on his max health, or his offense build, which is the amount of damage he does with all of his other hits. Now, his Star Destroyer is important and all of that. So people have said, Zareth, I got my Starkiller up with a bunch of health like you told me to, and I don't think I've ever said that. I've always been intrigued by that build, but that's not something I think is going to be fun to, he does a ton of damage, just constantly assisting whatever Sith is hanging out there, throwing his entire tire, just doing all sorts of cool stuff. He's doing an enormous amount of damage there, and I think that dwarfs the amount of damage the Star Destroyer does. But the thing is, you don't want to just completely ignore either of them. Whether you choose the health build or the offense build, you're getting both with more relics, guys. And the jump from honestly going from relic 5 to 6 to 7 to 8, like you know how numbers work, but he gets like almost 1,000 offense every jump once you include modding, as long as your modding is decent. And you're also getting a nice health boost, and I would love to give him that extra health boost just to help ramp up his Star Destroyer of healing. But the idea, guys, that you can get as much health as you can stacked onto as much offense as you can on your Starkiller, plus being able to find room for some speed, some crit damage, some whatever you want to do with him. He is very stat hungry, and he would really appreciate more relic levels. He respectfully requests more relic levels. Do it right now. Vader Chewie is another character that I talk about a lot. Of course, you need Dash and his Omicron to make Vader good. If you don't have them, then Vader Chewie, I mean, he's still cool. He can go on a pets team, and eventually I feel like they're going to make Wookiees very relevant. All they need to do is add like one character. They're really close to being like at least somewhat mainstream. But here's the big thing, guys. First off, his damage, he does a crazy amount of damage. He does more damage, at least with his focused big special hit, than Dash does, and it's all based on his max health. And so at the very start, he loses protection and he gains 80% of whatever his max health is, and so you just mod him for a ton of health, and he does a crazy amount of damage, and he's way more survivable. It's a win-win. And then he also, if you can get him more relic levels, he's going to gain more health and therefore way more offense. He gets to double dip on his stats as well. All right, so we got Snips here, and I mean, almost like all three versions of Ahsoka could probably benefit from getting more relic levels, frankly, guys. Her ship is still pretty relevant on the Negotiator. That ship has aged very well with the addition of the Marauder. She has some vital roles to play on that. I wouldn't say, I mean, so her ship is a nice reason to do it. But the other thing is, guys, she's also very stat hungry in the sense that she would like to have a little speed. She would like to have some offense because she can hit fairly hard, in fact. And she would like to be survivable because a lot of times she's used as the weakest link on a Jedi Master Kenobi team, and people use her to trigger Savior. So if you can give her as much health as possible while also, providing some offense, here's the best of both worlds with health and offense, a little bit of speed, etc., making her survivable and making her a little fast, a little like she just wants all the things. And she is constantly assisting. She's one of those characters who gets more hits in than anyone else on the team because of the way her kit reads with assisting when there's Galactic Republic. So her ship is relevant, and she's relevant in a lot of, and she's one of the most versatile characters in the game. She can go with a ton of squads. She's very similar to Mace in that regard. Savage is a character that, if you put him at Relic 3 with his Omicron, he's pretty damn impressive. When you get him to 5, he starts being kind of unkillable. When you get him to 8, you really need a serious, very intentional plan to remove the guy. He is ridiculously thick, and his lightsaber is ridiculously long. Holy balls. He is an impressive guy in several ways. He does okay damage, whatever. Like, if you want to solo things, you're not gonna find a lot of sympathy from me. Like, I guess early game, that's kind of a game that you can play, but the thing is, once he goes on a team and just sits there and refuses to die forever, it's so obnoxious, guys. And the more relics you have, the harder it's going to be to remove the guy. He is just very strong. Of course, that's in GAC. In all the other game modes and all of any part of the game at all beyond GAC, he's fairly worthless. In fact, he can twirl his saber all he wants, and no one's going to notice. GAC, very impressive fellow. Very impressive. Royal Guard, wait, I promised we'd talk about him. Here's the thing, guys. Once you get Lord Vader, get your Royal Guard up to 7, Relic 7 at least. There's just a certain level of, once you're facing Lord Vader, You can use all kinds of off-meta stuff to destroy the team. You can use troopers, you can use bounty hunters, all kinds of stuff. And all of that just comes to a screeching halt if the Royal Guard is really well modded and has good relics. So high relics on him, very important. He uses the stuff from Lord Vader extremely judiciously and well. As long as you have him well modded and know what you're doing with him, which is basically just giving him health, not protection. It seems like you want protection on him, but you actually want health, and I'm not going to get into it right now, but giving him a lot of health and giving him, I mean, I would love to get him Relic 9. He's been on my short-ish list for Relic 9 for a while, and I just keep having to prioritize, but honestly, I've never regretted Relic 8. A lot of people who have fought me have been like, geez, man, your Royal Guard is thick. And I mean, it's not the most impressive modding. You can tell because of the 6E here instead of it being 6A, but he is very impressive. His ship is kind of good too, though I wouldn't say relicking him is the main reason, for his ship is the main reason to do it. You just want, if you want Lord Vader to work, I feel like he has a bad reputation, Lord Vader does, because people are like, dude, I always put Lord Vader on defense. I put Royal Guard with him, and they always fail. Then you look, and it's like, oh, you you have Relic 3 on Royal Guard. Like that are you embarrassed, or like why aren't you embarrassed? That's crazy that you think he's going to operate and function well when Lord Vader, when his support team is just total balls. Cad Bane is another character that I think, so you don't use him in squad, you use him in ships, and you want him to hit hard. I just put Relic 8 on him on my littlest account. I'll be putting Relic 8 on Beskar Mando pretty soon as well, because Executor is still a very important ship. It still kills Leviathan, it still kills Profundity, it kills all the different teams out there. Honestly, it's really strong, and a lot of that comes from the Xanadu blood. You need high relics for these ships in order to function at a high level with Executor. Baze is in demand. You can't watch a video of mine without me singing Baze praise. He is just, he's crazy, but Baze praise, the craze is amaze. He is gosh, he probably prays to, whatever gods he prays to. It was just Easter. Maybe that's who he's praying to, Easter. But you want a lot of relics on him because he is an absolute unit. He even has the old school mods, but or old school stats, which means he's not quite as thick as we would kind of hope for, but gosh, he is just so good at surviving, and all the teams that he's currently wanting to be on keep him alive very well. And I think that that's the thing. I keep puzzling, like, why wasn't I just really into him like 4 years ago, like as a character? And it's because the teams didn't exist back then that necessitated someone doing the things that he does. But Saw does a lot of cool stuff with him. Leia, same thing. Mon Mothma, less so, but still somewhat interesting. He's also a pre-taunt. I mean, before this, it was just he was a pre-taunt that was kind of thick and went with like a weird, like, turret doesn't do that much without some kind of like Datacron or some weird, build. But now he fits on a ton of very, very current and awesome teams, and those current and awesome teams necessitate the use and application of several relic levels on each character. So Baze at Relic 8 makes total sense to me. Alright, Malgus is a character that is, I've been using him a ton lately, guys. He's my new favorite character, frankly. Like, Starkiller's been my favorite, and now I use them both on the same squad, and they just spin circles with each other. It's amazing. It's really cool, though. He destroys things. He assists all the time in GAC. I know he's not that good in any other game mode, so if you don't want to play him in other game modes, that's fine. I don't really care. He is a lot of fun, and yes, he wants all of his Omicrons. He wants all his Zetas. He is very, very resource hungry. He wants all that stuff. He wants all the stats. And once you've invested in that much in a character, he just doesn't disappoint. That's the thing. If you put all of that into like Cup, that would be disappointing when you went in and just got destroyed by, like, everything. But Malgus isn't that way. He destroys everything that he messes with as long as you go in with the right build and the right expectations, etc. And because he assists so much, and because his damage, it comes in two different forms. First, he assists with his basic, and it's just kind of the nagging, wearing, just tap, tap, tap. Like, it actually does real damage, unlike, like, Malgus's annoying, like, I'm just gonna poke you with my stick. Like Malgus destroys people with his rocks. It is so awesome. His basic does a lot of damage, but then his rocks do massive damage if you have him modded right, if you have him reliced, and because he's an attacker, he gets a disproportionate amount going from Relic 7 up to Relic 8. He gets a ton of offense just from that. He's very worth, if you're going to put the Omicrons on and put the investment in for this character and the squads that he's going to be on, you want to put some relics on him as well, because you want to use a character with this much investment as best you can. You want to get as much out of him as you can, and trying to go cheap with him is just not going to pan out for you. I don't think. It's not going to end the way you think. Jedi Knight Anakin, so his ship, still very relevant, as we talked about with Snips. He's kind of gotten new life with Kelleran Beq. He's hanging out with him a lot, and, he's always been that guy, though, with that just... I mean, it's written into his unique. He does more damage once someone triggers his bonus turn, and so it's all just one huge AoE hit. It's all one huge focus, and he's an attacker. Going from 7 to 8 is really nice. It gives him a huge boost on offense. Very worthwhile to get those stats up. And, pay attention to your modding, pay attention to your crons, etc. But then also his ship, it needs to survive. It's pretty squishy, so an extra relic level doesn't hurt. It does extra damage in fleets, which is honestly a relevant topic as well. Now, Stormtrooper is a new one, and he kind of represents the entire Imperial Remnant faction in a way. So first off, he could be a little useful in the Endor raid. He's not the best character there, frankly, just being honest. And then the Endor raid is going to be gone in a few months anyways, so not the specific reason to be working on him, though it is a nice little bonus for now. The other reason is he just turns into such a unit, so tough to kill once he has all of his modding on defense with a ton of protection, and just make him as thick as possible. Guys, I've had a few interactions with him lately in the game where I'm just like, this is like borderline amazing, like awe-inspiring how thick he can be. And that's not really news. He's been this thick for a long time, but he is worth working on. And the Imperial Remnant team, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's going to be very strong for a long time. I hope this ages well, but he's been pretty thick anyways. He's just wanted a reason to stay that thick, in my opinion. Now we have Sith Assassin as well. This is a big question mark, because do you get her to Relic 9 just for fleet convenience? Not really. The thing is, a lot of people have been using Sith Assassin with Bane, and Sith Assassin just dies and is dead and is not going to be resurrected like Easter lore would suggest, but because frankly, if I'm being honest with you, Sith Assassin is not Jesus. So, Sith Assassin, though, is going to die, and Bane is going to reap the rewards from all of those relics, and he's going to hit all the harder. Not to mention, it is nice to have her a little bit faster in fleets. Not that that's the main reason to do it. And then, she's got some promise against guns, too. I don't know what's going to happen with them. You can see my modding of her is all over the place. It's not good. And frankly, I don't really want to mod her that well right now anyways, but she does hit very hard under protection in the right circumstances and against guns that may end up being a very potent tool. We just have to see what their kits end up being. Plo Koon, you really want him at Relic 8 for his ship so that you can outrun all of those Relic 9 IG 2000 or IG-88s that are out there just to force you to put Relic 8 on Plo Koon. It's annoying, but he also has some added utility on Starkiller. He does some cool stuff. He can go with other Jedi. I think it's an underrated ability to give all the Jedis an extra 50% turn meter. He only really ever uses this ability once within a fight, but it can be extremely beneficial when you do use it. Alright, and now the speed run, folks. B1 is something that I don't have even at Relic 8, but he attacks every time someone on his team is going to attack. We have Stap coming up to be able to be farmable, and that team is going to be overhauled and be good. And I think my guess is that he's going to be very relevant for the new Naboo raid. If ever there was a time to upgrade your B1, I think right now is the time. Luke Skywalker going from Relic 7 to Relic 8 gives him more survivability and more damage. Very straightforward, but it's a substantial boost to a character who does a lot at 7. He does even more, surprisingly, at Relic 8. Bando, we've already kind of talked about him and how you really want all of your relics to be high on your Executor team, and IG-2000 or IG-88 should be on this list as well, but we're trying to keep it all short. Right now, of course, he has a good Datacron, but that'll go away soon. You just want him to do have as much offense as possible, and so that he can take out as many things as he can. Obviously, it just boosts his whole Whistling Birds mechanic. He is very strong there. Chrysanthemum and basically all of the characters on Jabba's team really love to have high relics. Once you, especially Chrysanthemum though, because he really makes the most of his unique with his Omicron, because I don't think his unique Omicron is worthwhile unless you apply it, unless he has high relics, and I think Relic 8 is probably the lowest I would want it to be for him. You don't want to make Jabba a pushover, so making his biggest tank that revives and I have to kill him twice, a unit is probably worthwhile. Paz Vizsla is another character I don't have at Relic 8 yet, but because I think Bo-Katan is a decent team, Paz is honestly more impressive, just like a different Mandalorian team other than Bo. Like, Bo just kind of turns him into a tank, but man, he tanks a lot. He takes a lot of damage, and as we've been saying before, you want your tanks to be able to survive a lot of damage. Alright, that's it for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. What other characters belong on this current list? Thank you all so much for watching once again, and remember that in all things, Zareth prevails.